Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Biggerplate.com. I've been asked by our friends at Mind Manager to share some ideas about the ways mind mapping and visualization techniques could be used by professionals in sales and account management roles. So let's take a look. When it comes to the early stage planning for a particular sale, really we've got to think about what is the purpose at this stage of the process. Well, more often than not, it's about information gathering, some strategic awareness of that particular prospect and what might be going on in their business, why they may be interested in your product or service, and then, of course, articulating some sort of plan of action. Now, the benefits of using mind mapping and visualization for this is you can get all of the key information you need into one single visual summary rather than having key pieces of information that might be pertinent to the sale spread across many different platforms and programs. The other benefit of using tools like Mind Manager is we can also connect up that information really well. And using the mind map and the visual as our sort of control center, we can connect off to other key pieces of information that may be stored elsewhere. And again, bring everything into one simple, easy to manage space. Importantly, the mind map structure is really expansive and adaptable. So as you learn more, research more, and pull more information into your sales plan, the mind map structure can evolve with it and really help you to build out a rich picture of that particular opportunity. So let's take a look now at an example of how that might come about. So here we are looking at a very simple sales planning template mind map. Now a simple template can take you a long way, and it really doesn't matter what sales process or framework you use in your organization, chances are you can put it into a simple mind map template and build out your process in a really adaptable, flexible way. So here, for example, I've just got a simple map template that's going to make me think through the company information I need to pull together. Then it's going to help me to explore and consider the opportunity that's in front of me, and then start to plan out my engagement, how I'm going to try and make that sales process happen. So let's take a look at each one of these in turn as we explore the possibilities within the mind mapping software. So in this first branch of the mind map, what we're really doing is that most basic research that you'll inevitably do the minute a company name comes across your desk, either because of an inquiry or because you've identified them as a potential target. So what I would do with my mind map is immediately start to populate that map with the most basic information I can find, most likely from their website. So for example, if my target company is Biggerplate, if I was going to be trying to sell something to Biggerplate, the first thing I'd probably do is jump to that Biggerplate website and just capture that website address and pull that directly into my mind map. So I can just say to insert a link, add that into there. And what I've saved in here now is a really quick little signpost that can take me exactly where I want. Now that's just taking me directly to the homepage of the target company, Biggerplate, but actually I might want to be more specific. So for example, if I'm starting to explore what products or services does this company provide, I might actually want to save more specific website links. And again, the same principle applies. I could go and maybe discover that this company provides training. So for example, I can save that specific training page, which has loads of information that I might want to keep to hand, and I can just save that right into my mind map, again just using that hyperlinks function. We may also start to build out in our mind map some of the most basic information and keep it nice and visible. For example, established dates, location information, whatever really we think is just going to be helpful context. Now, we're not trying to replicate every piece of information that they have on their website. We're just trying to keep the headlines in our mind map nice and handy so we know really the kind of broad, simple context for this organization. And obviously you can go as in-depth as you like. Other things we might start to build out is things like people information. So for example, if I was researching Biggerplate, I might discover this bloke called Liam. And again, I might just pop off something like LinkedIn, grab a LinkedIn profile there and pull that into my map template. Now this is just obviously getting started and building out the basics, but with every one of these you could start to add a little bit more information. You could, for example, start to build out job titles, the focus of that person's work and efforts, if you can find that information out. And again, maybe you've got some prior knowledge that means you can flesh this out more comprehensively. Down here in the industry pile, again, we could just start to put in any trends that we think might be influential in this sales process, maybe competition that may be relevant to whether there's competition for your products or services in this sales process. So we can use the mind map to just start populating some very basic information about the company. And as I say, you can really make that as rich as you like, particularly when you start to use these hyperlinks functions to pull in that extra information and just give yourself these little jumping jumping off points, rather than trying to remember a bit further down the line, where was that web address, where was that thing I needed to find. We can also add extra depth to the mind map using the notes function. So for example, on the Liam Hughes topic, I could pop open this notes bar and perhaps leave myself a little note that says, met Liam in 2018, was interested but lacking budget, perhaps, is my little note to self. Perhaps this is a long-term prospect that's come back online. Now, again, the software is going to give us the ability to add lots of extra information using things like the notes function. So in this research area, we can build up lots of information here to give us the context in which we're going to be trying to develop this opportunity. When it comes to mapping out the opportunity itself, it's really about brainstorming how your solutions might match up to those particular pain points that you've identified or that the prospect has revealed. So, for example, in my mind map, I've just created a little branch called pain points, and I would then start to capture what those were, either because I can hazard an informed guess based on my research, or again, perhaps you've got a lead that's come in and they've told you what some of the pain points are. So let's say, for example, in this opportunity, the company has articulated we have a problem with personal organization and productivity in our staff, and we are paying a lot for software that people are not using in order to try and solve that problem. So they've maybe signed up to a software to try and solve this problem, but the uptake of that software is not as they would wish. So again, I would then start to map that to our solutions and think, well, what have we got to offer them that could help? So I could say our pro membership might help, our training for business, or our certification. Now, importantly, this is where you might start to use some of the additional function in the mind mapping software tools to really make sure you're clear on what the priority areas are. So for example, if I really look at these pain points, what is the real pain point here? It's actually the productivity issue that they began with. So I might use some of these kind of markers to mark things up as priority 1 and then priority 2 to really give myself these visual cues and visual signals about what matters most. Now, with that in mind, I could then start to look at the solutions I'm proposing and actually suggest to myself, well, maybe the most important one is going to be that training. So I'm going to mark that as my sort of primary solution I want to put in front of the prospect. And then maybe again, pro membership is a follow-up from that. And certification, well, it's relevant, but maybe the least relevant for this kind of period. So I'm starting to map the pain points and just build out. And again, within the mind map, I could add as much information out here as I like. So I can really build up that story. But the important thing is to now start using some of these markers that may help us really zone in on where we want to focus. Similarly, under obstacles, what are the obstacles that we might encounter in relation to this opportunity? Well, this is where I would start to think through what are some of the common or potential objections I might have in the sales process. Again, all of this is before I've actually engaged with the person to try and make the sale. So objections I might have in this example might be things like busy exec calendars might make training difficult. So I then start to think about what might my answers be. Well, we're going to propose short virtual sessions and on-demand training that people can take in their own time. Again, I might start to use some of those little icons within the software to really identify those kind of how I'm going to counteract some of these objections. Other objections could be I could get all of this information from YouTube. Again, I would be proposing that our solution is more curated, more practical, and more focused on you than YouTube would ever be. So again, we can start to use the software to really build out beginnings of a prioritized plan. We started to identify the real need here. We're starting to identify which of our products or services is going to be most relevant potentially for that client. And then we're also starting to think through the beginnings of our engagement plan and how we might counteract some of those objections. So having mapped out the company and the opportunity that we're looking to pursue, we now start to think about our engagement plan. And again, this is really simple in this mind map. We're not trying to replicate or duplicate what might exist elsewhere. We're just trying to give ourselves real headline clarity around our approach. So again, from earlier in the mind map, we've captured the who. Who are we going to be trying to engage? Perhaps in this case, it's that guy, Liam. What are we going to be putting forward? Well, the products we've decided based on our previous exploration of the opportunity, we're going to put forward our training for business, our pro membership, and our certification. Importantly, we've prioritized these. So it may be that actually when push comes to shove, we might even take one of those off the table to really focus in on where we think the value is. We can then start to use the software as well to picture up any other resources, materials that we may want. So for example, in our materials, we may decide we're going to need an information deck and a discovery map. Now, in the same way that we linked off to websites earlier in the process, we can actually use that same functionality here to link to files and folders on our computer. So again, let's say we've got our folder for this particular prospect saved up. I could say, let's save our PDF brochure here for services and save that right within the mind map. Similarly, I could link to another mind map that I'm going to use with the client, which is my discovery map. And as I link to each of those, it means they're again saved right here in the document, ready for access. So if I just click that PDF link within the software, it's going to take me straight away to that document that I know I'm going to want to use in my engagement. We can then start to think about the who, the what, and then the when. So what is the timetable and steps that are going to go through here? So this is where we might start to leverage some of the kind of task information aspects of mind mapping software. So let's say, for example, we've got 3 simple steps in theory for this sales process. We've got a process to complete a request for a proposal, which involves responding to questions and attaching information. We've then got a review meeting, and then we've got a project delivery. So we can use the software to do a few things here. We can start to identify these as tasks. So we've got to complete the questions and attach information deck. So that would then roll up into our completion of the RFP, and we can actually tell the software to keep track of that. So as I go through, for example, the responses, you'll notice the task starts to become completed as I tick through the information. Again, attaching that information deck, well, I've got it right here, so I'm going to hopefully be able to tick that off nice and easily. As we're using these kind of more project planning parts in our engagement, we could also start to assign certain tasks to people and time if we wanted to. So for example, within the complete RFP process, we might decide that certain parts have some deadlines on it. So maybe I've got from the 8th until the end of this week to complete that questionnaire, and again probably the same sort of time frame on those attaching the information deck. So you see within the software I can start to articulate the actual time frames involved here, and I can even go one step further and suggest who needs to respond to the questions. I've assigned that to Dan, and maybe who needs to attach the information deck. Well, that's probably going to be the same person. Maybe we're going to put that to Dan. Now, when it comes to a review meeting, again, we maybe then just start to get a sense of maybe that's the following week, maybe on the 15th, and that maybe is going to be handled by one of our other teams. So maybe that's going to be a Graham task. So I can start to assign both time and individuals to these particular tasks and show their completion. Now, without going too in depth on this, it means I can just keep together the key information about who is doing what and when, all in my simple sales planning mind map. Now, of course, certain parts of this process might actually go into your sales tools. Maybe you're using different sales tools to plan and manage this activity, in which case you might want to avoid too much duplication in here, but keeping the simple headline information right here in the sales planning map is going to help you understand how you've moved through from that initial research to developing and articulating the opportunity, and now how you are engaging with that company to try and close that sale.